everyone, and welcome to Both Sides Book Club. You're with Catie and Debbie, and I hope you've had an awesome 2 weeks reading along and reading The Safe Place by Anna Downs. It is our first thriller with Both Sides Book Club, and it was your pick, and we are so excited to talk to you about it. And we have a special visitor. We have Anna Downs, who is the author of this book, who is going to be joining us on this episode in just a minute. But to get started, for anybody that hasn't read the book or needs a refresher, the book follows a story of a young girl in her mid-20s called Emily Proudman, and she's working for she's
a businessman.
Yeah.
A very successful
businessman.
Yeah, in London.
In London. And she goes to work one day and finds out that she has been fired for no apparent reason. And she's kind of going, well, that was weird. Like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I working for people that don't value me?
She has a really bad day.
A really bad day.
A really bad day.
A really, really bad day. And then sort of the next day, she gets a call from her boss who wants to have a meeting with her and offers her a huge change. Basically, offers her to ditch her life and start a new one, which is working for his family in France. So she takes the opportunity, she goes and works in France and works for his family, and things are just not what they seem. They look perfect on the outside, but Emily's job is to start cracking and starting to solve what's actually going on with their family. Yeah. So it's very suspenseful, it's very visual, and you feel like you've also had a holiday in France. So,
totally.
So recommend reading if you haven't.
Yeah.
So to talk a little bit more about it with us, we've got, as I said, Anna Downs, the author. So we're going to tune in and speak to her now. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, hi. How are you?
Hi, Anna. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good.
Good.
How's things over there?
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Welcome to Both Sides Book Club.
Welcome to Both Sides Book Club.
Yay, thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you on and just to chat to you and to get to know a little bit more about you. So thank you so much for giving up your time.
Particularly when you just got when you just got back from holiday as well. So quite quick change, put a bit of makeup on, bit of lippy.
I just spent 5 days camping, and like about 2 hours ago, I was like camping hair, and in the sweats and the tracky necks. I've just been like, I have to be presentable. So yeah.
Hey, you pulled it together really well. Well done.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
And how amazing is your setup behind you, or the book? It's awesome.
Yeah, little studio. So when this all kicked off, and I knew that I was going to have some kind of presentable background. I was doing all of these kind of events from my living room, and I've got like this beautiful, massive bookshelf. As I could kind of display everything that I'd ever read behind me. It was great, but I've got 2 children, and they're 4 and 6. And so quite quickly learned that actually the living room is really not the place. Not going to work at all. So I'm now sequestered away in my office, and I've kind of put this up behind me, which is nice. But yeah, virtual events. They're weird, aren't they?
That's almost very similar to us. With us, when we started Both Sides Book Club, it was like at the very beginning of COVID. And we had set it up that it was in my mother's same sort of thing.
Your mother?
Why did I call you my mother? I don't know.
Why you call me
my mum's like reading library room study, but that's also in the middle of her house. So we're
and it's kind of like there was just a constant parade of people, kind of like, and the washing machine going on, and
I know. I know.
And you can't eat now. You're making noise. Stop it.
I know, but there's kind of something I quite like about that. Like, I'm really enjoying kind of, I love it now when you get a virtual event where someone's children do pop up, or where, you know, the washing machine does go off, and, you know, you're like, oh, a little window into people's lives. Like, it's quite good, and I quite like it. But yeah, so I should apologise if one of my children does come in. I think my husband's taking them out, but I just heard one of them going, Mommy! I was like,
So a little bit of backstory as to why we were reading your book. Well, it's epic and we love it. And a lot of our readers were wanting to do a thriller because we haven't done one yet. So we casted a vote for October, and your book won by far. So everybody who's reading with us is so excited to read your book.
Wonderful. That's great to hear.
So it's an added bonus that we get to speak to you as well. So thank you.
No worries.
So the way we like to sort of do these chats, I guess, is not so formal, as you've probably seen. We're not the most formal people ever.
Yay, good, great, wonderful.
So, you know, feel free if you trail off, don't worry about it.
And good.
And don't be offended if we butt in.
Oh, feel free. That's fine. Yeah.
Awesome. So probably we have to start with. We know you're an actress, so could you tell us a little bit of the story about you being an actress, and also how you've gone from living in the UK to Australia?
Yeah, so, acting days were about 10 years ago now. So I decided to stop being an actor in 2008. I think so. Gosh, even longer than 10 years. Such a long time ago. But it was something that I'd wanted to do, you know, ever since I was really small. I was always hankering after, you know, school plays and stuff. I didn't really do anything else. I didn't play any sports. I didn't, you know, play an instrument. I didn't do any other extracurricular activities other than just be in all the plays, like find all the kind of community drama things. And I sharpened my elbows and fought my way to playing all the leads. I was really annoying, really irritating teenager. That's right, I'm a lead actress. But I loved
Sheffield,
it.
Didn't you? Sorry, Yanni. I went to uni in Sheffield.
Get out of town!
Yeah, totally. I was kind of before you were born, but yeah, totally. I went to university in Sheffield University, and I've still got friends in Sheffield now. Yeah.
That's crazy. I love Sheffield. So I was born there.
I make fun of her now because now I think she sounds just as Australian Vogan as I do. But
I wouldn't say either of you sound like Vogan. But
well, she does. She says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm like, Mum,
do you really?
In Australia.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Goodness me. I grew up in Sheffield, but I studied. I did a drama degree in Manchester, so I was there for 3 years. Had the most amazing group of friends, a lot of whom have gone on to do some really amazing things. You know, people, my classmates working at the BBC and at Netflix, and Benedict Cumberbatch was the year above me.
Oh wow!
So we've got a hugely impressive kind of class of whatever it was, 2001 or whatever. And then after university, I spent 3 years at RADA in London. So that's the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And that was all acting training. Had the most amazing time. And again, you know, a very glittery, not a cast, but, you know, like the people that were around me have gone on to do some amazing things. It's all very impressive, and very, very fulfilling and exciting. And I honestly thought that my future was kind of paved with gold, you know, like the path to my future was paved with gold. But the problem with, I think, graduating from a drama school, particularly one like that's very, your expectations are built quite highly. I was talking to a friend of mine that I graduated with the other day, and we were both saying that what RADA, I think in hindsight, taught us more than anything was how to be a star. And I think when you're not a star, and you know, you kind of, you come down to earth with a bit of a bump, and also you're not as kind of you know, you're not taken care of at all when you're out on your own and you're a professional. You know, you're kind of fending for yourself and learning really quickly how to stand on your own 2 feet after having, you know, years and years of of structure and protection. And you know, I think that's true of anything that you do when you're an adult, but I think particularly with creative stuff, it's just such a rude shock getting out there and realizing that actually you're not as special as you think you are. You know, it's a massively oversaturated industry. Sometimes you go to castings and I'd literally be you know, one of 25 blonde girls. You know, everybody looked exactly like me. And you kind of wonder what your contribution is. You know, what are you doing that nobody else is doing? And you know, financially it's pretty rocky. You know, sometimes when I got telly gigs, I'd be like, yay, drinks are on me, and then the next month I'd be nothing. You know, nothing at all. I mean, I always had jobs, I always temped, but you know, those are hard times as well, because when you're temping, not really part of a team, you are temporary, so people don't really take the time to get to know you, and you don't feel like you belong, and so your whole life is just this kind of, it's very transitory, it's very you just kind of feel like you're in limbo all the time. And I think that for some people that really works. There is a lot of freedom in that, you know. There are some upsides, but for me, I think I quickly discovered I'm just not one of those people, and I can't I don't do unpredictability very well. And the other go on.
So no, I was actually just sort of, when you were talking, Anna, I was kind of thinking of a lot of parallels between what Catie and her partner Jay do, because they're filmmakers, and Catie's also a fashion photographer, and it's exactly, you know, the same kind of thing, is that, you know, they're put on hold or asked to pitch for something. It
drives Mum more insane. She's like, are you available for family dinner in 2 weeks? I said, Mum, I don't know.
You know,
I don't know.
You know, and you can put all this, they can put all this work into, you know, putting together a pitch and doing all of these things, and then but somebody else gets the job, and for no rhyme, no reason, other than that then they might be in a different place at the right place. I mean, who knows? Who knows? You know, and I think it's exactly the same kind of thing. Either like there's so much work, or sometimes there isn't that much work. You know,
it really is.
It would drive me insane too.
Yeah, I really empathize with that. And I think a huge part of it was that I was like, I can't spend the rest of my life kind of sitting here with everything else on hold. You know, I can't book any holidays. I can't experience the world. You know, how am I going to, you know, as an actor, you know, as a storyteller, your job is to explore people and places and situations, and, you know, the rich tapestry that is humanity. And if you can't get out and see any of that or explore any of that, if you're stuck in a 1-bedroom flat above a curry house in Deptford, and you literally can't, you know, you're always waiting for the phone to ring. I don't see how. I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I can't do it.
So I decided to take a bit of a sabbatical, and at the time I was really into snow sports and snowboarding. So I was like, I'm just going to go and do a ski season and just at least tick that off my bucket list. In the second week of that ski season, I met my now husband.
Where did you go?
Oh, I went to Sainte-Foy-Tarentaise, which is a small, it's actually not that small anymore. It's much more developed than it was 12 years ago. But it's a French-run small resort, not far from Tignes, actually, not far from Val d'Isère.
Right. Okay.
Fun. And so, I met my now husband there, and I don't know, I just felt happier and more free, and had a greater sense of direction than I'd had in years. And I suddenly felt actually the world is so much bigger and more exciting than I have thus far believed it to be. So that was the point at which I stopped. And then I'm going to skip over a big chunk. And we ended up here in Australia because my husband is Australian. He's from the Central Coast. And it kind of it happened organically. There was no real big decision made that was where we were going to live. It just traveling and visas, and this is where we ended up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Amazing.
Good. Okay, so we're going to skip forward to 2016. Which, as you said, was the year that almost killed you. And so for any of our listeners or followers that don't know a little bit about what was happening for Anna, you were living on the Central Coast. You just had your second baby, and your old is your first child a girl or a boy? Was it you had a girl first?
Jack came first. He's a boy, and then Daisy came.
You had a baby girl, so 2 under 2, and you were suffering from postnatal anxiety. Do you want to? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, it was. Obviously, in many ways a wonderful time because, I was living my new dream, and I was living in this incredible country in a beautiful suburb on the Central Coast, right by the ocean, wonderful husband, 2 very healthy, fantastic children. So the first problem, I think, was that I just didn't really feel fulfilled, and I felt very far away from the person that I had always been. So, in upending my life in that way, I kind of shattered my identity, and I was kind of trying to forge a new life and a new me, which at the time, having run from something that wasn't working, I was like, I'll just reinvent myself. This is fine. This is great. But of course, you need to be personally fulfilled. And also, I think, for anybody moving to a different place, it takes a really long time to find your people, find your tribe. And it certainly took a long time for me. So I was unfulfilled, a bit confused. I was a bit lonely. And then, I had the 2 children, and as anyone who's had kids will know that it's an intensely joyful time, but it's also an intensely confusing and lonely time. So all of that stuff kind of compounded. And then my daughter never slept. We don't really know why, but there was like 8 months where I was just completely driven insane by sleep deprivation. And of course, the sun would rise and my son would get up. So it's like, you get that advice of sleep when the baby's. I'm like, are you kidding? Are you kidding?
Yes.
So I completely, I was just mad. I was really mad. I was quite miserable and didn't really know how to fix anything. And then it all just got worse and worse. And then there were these times when I would just collapse in the house in tears. I couldn't stop crying. I was fearful all the time, just like, that feeling right before a really important job interview. And I was just all the time. So my adrenaline levels were unhealthily high. I was in a constant state of fight or flight. I couldn't make any decisions. I would cry in the supermarket because I couldn't make a decision between 2 particular types of cereal.
When did you realize that you were mad? If you like, I mean, I kind of, Well, no. I'm just kind of.
My words.
No.
Totally mad.
I'm just quoting Anna, and I don't mean it in that way.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
No, I hear you.
But.
Thank you for talking about it with us, by the way. It's really brave of you.
Because
I'm very comfortable talking about it now.
It is. I mean, having 2 small children, even at the best of times is, with family and a support network around you is really hard going, and you don't know whether you're up or down most of the time. But I mean, when I'm just actually really interested, and I think it's probably quite important for anybody who is watching or listening to hear about that. At what stage were you able to say, this is not right. I am not right.
Yeah. So I did have some people that I would hang out with, and some other mums, some of whom were quite open, in talking about how tired they were and how miserable they were and stuff. But I don't feel like ever, when we were all going through it, nobody was really 100% honest.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling, I remember quite a few very specific circumstances, barbecues and stuff like that. And I just felt so ashamed that I didn't seem to be enjoying it as much as everybody else. And that I was, really in the pit of me, just feeling so sad and miserable. And then there came all of those sort of panic attacks and crying jags. And there was a very specific moment, and I can put myself back there. I was in a house that we used to live in just 20 minutes up the coast, and I was on the landing. I had one child screaming in one room and another child screaming in the other, and I was kind of curled on the landing in this ball, just kind of going, all right, this can't continue. I need to do something about this. And the only thing I could think of was a friend of mine had said that she said it in a very kind of way. She just said, I've had some panic attacks. And I went to, she went to see a homeopath.
Okay, yeah.
And so I texted her and just said, what's the name of that homeopath? I didn't say anything like I'm dying here, but do you know what's the name of the homeopath? And I went to see this homeopath, and I don't think the homeopath actually did anything for me necessarily, but it was that first step in going to see somebody. And the whole consultation consisted of me describing what had happened to me over the last kind of 8 months. And it was after that I was like, oh yeah, no, actually, when I really lay it out like that, I'm not coping at all, and I need to go and see my GP. And the weird thing is that I think now, if I were to speak to somebody who's going through that, I would say, go see your GP and be honest about what's happening. But at the time, everything just felt very rational. I don't think when you're in it, you don't realize how bad it is. And also, I remember thinking, all these adverts say, go get some help. I was like, where is the help?
Yes.
Where is the line that you call? Because I'm so busy, I can't get out to see the GP.
Yes.
I can't make an appointment. I need to speak to someone in this moment now. Because also by the time you get to the GP, you're all right. And you go, I'm okay today. Actually, I'm fine.
I'm fine. It's all right.
Yeah. But when you're in those moments, it's like the bottom has dropped out of your life and you are plummeting through a chasm. That's when you need to speak to somebody. And so I think now what I would recommend is that when you're in those moments, write it down, or like use your dictaphone or something that will remind you when you're back on a slightly more even keel, but will remind you where you go to in those moments and how bad it gets. Because you've got to go see a GP. You've got to be honest about what you're going through, because, none of it is abnormal. It's all completely normal. We all go through this stuff. But for some reason, there's the most ridiculous stigma still around all mental health, but particularly, I think, postnatal stuff. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to admit that we actually don't. We don't like that gig.
Because
we're not having a good time,
Don't we? I think, particularly as new parents, as mothers, we're setting ourselves up for a fall, because the expectation that you have to nail it every single time in every situation, I think can be so intense that, how can you possibly admit even to yourself that you're not coping?
That added pressure, if you're not coping, maybe I feel like every conversation that I had back then, everything was preempted with, I really love my children, but I'm feeling like this. It's like you have to
justify.
Justify, but prove that you do love your kids and you are a good mum, but you just happen to be struggling a little bit. It's like, no, let's just all be honest. It's really, really difficult. It can be excruciatingly hard. And as you said, the pressure to succeed, the pressure to nail it is very intense and mounting every day. And it's all tied up with capitalism as well, because it's all about, you've got to buy the right products. You've got to adhere to a certain ideology or stick to a certain set of rules. What kind of mum are you? Are you an attachment parenting? Are you a bugaboo mum? What kind of, and it's like, can we just stop and just maybe just, I found it so overwhelming. And I think that the aspect of the book that deals with perfectionism comes from those feelings that I was really channeling those at the time, which is, just that shame, for one, shame around perhaps not getting it right.
That's where I wanted to sort of lead into next, which is, so thank you so much for being vulnerable and talking about all of that with us,
no problem.
which is really huge and really amazing of you to be open and honest about it. But I think where I'd like to tie it back to is, do you think that some of those experiences that you went through shaped some inspiration behind the book, or like with character elements of Emily as well?
I mean, they are all really different characters, and I think that obviously while Emily is much more a kind of literal version of me, and I think I channel a lot of my actual real life experiences through her, but at that age, like sort of mid to late 20s me, the other characters, they all come from me as well, and I think they're all the manifestation of certain feelings and fears and anxieties and hopes and dreams, all those things that were going through my mind at the time. Very particular. Scott particularly, I think his strongest characteristic is the drive to succeed, but also fear that he will turn into his father, and shame that he's perhaps not making the right choices or not doing, he's treading a tightrope. And every single step for him is the stakes are so high.
It's about that control, isn't it? It's about staying
in control. And you feel
control.
As you're reading it, that exactly what you say, like the stakes are just getting higher, and you feel that like pressure, which I've never experienced postnatal depression, but I've had or anxiety, but I've suffered from anxiety since I was a kid. So I can kind of understand, I have empathy in that whole, it's like super consuming, and when you're in it, you can't get out of it, and you need help now, but you don't know how to ask for help and all of that. And I felt like as I was reading that, you could feel this sort of like, you very cleverly like blocked it up a little bit. Like as I was reading it with Scott, I was like, oh dear, what's going to happen? Like I felt that internal thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole
and that means that job is, I achieved what I set out to achieve, which is to kind of communicate emotionally what I was feeling at the time, which is exactly that.
So where did the inspiration for the book come from?
So let's cycle back to.
So we've really brought down the tone, haven't we? We've gone from like, hi Anna. So let's talk about real stuff.
Love it. Deep dive straight in there. Let's go. So I met my husband at the ski season. I decided not to go back to London, and Matt and I decided to carry on traveling and doing some seasonal jobs and having some adventures before settling down. One of those adventures took the form of a summer job, which we did twice, 2 summers running, working for and living with a very wealthy family on their remote property on the Midwest coast of France. So we actually, it's so funny because in some of the reviews, there have been some people that have said things like, I didn't find Emily's decision plausible, that she would just throw everything in and go and live with this family. And I was like, I did it.
I was like, totally.
I'm just remembering, I actually got offered to go and stay at someone's French house with my partner and work as house, like as a
like a general help.
So actually, excuse me to all those haters, legit that happens.
Legit, that happens all the time. And it was my real experience. I did make that decision, and I was like, yes, I kind of don't care what kind of people you are. I'm done with this life. I want some of yours. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we did that. We did that for 2 summers running. It was the most extraordinary experience. They were incredibly wealthy. They were really beautiful and warm and lovely people. We're still friends. And, nothing awful happened while we worked there. But I do remember several times saying to my husband, like, I don't know, there were just certain things that happened that were really odd, or that so the family weren't there the whole time. And this property was gigantic. It was enormous. And there were 2 houses on it, and it was surrounded by ocean and forest. Yeah. But like in the middle of the night, we might hear a noise in the house. And that feeling when you're sitting up in bed in the dark going...
Yeah, totally. What was that?
What was that?
You have to trust that intuition too. There's I feel like you don't get that feeling for no reason.
Well, I mean, it really set the imagination going. And then they had some kind of family members that came to stay, and they had some friends that came to stay. And it was just like this... 4 months, very hedonistic. 4 months of a real glimpse into a different life. But because we were living with them as well, it was, you just really saw it up close. And I did say to Matt a few times while we were there, I was like, someone's got to write about this. But I didn't think it would be me, because at that point I wasn't,
So was there a guest house and a main house? Same as in the book? Yeah.
There's a guest house and a main house. Both were pretty huge. I mean, I think now when we talk about guest houses, we think of sort of almost little pool houses at the bottom of a garden, but they were 2 fully massive houses. One of them was like 6 bedrooms. I think the other one was maybe 4, but they were really big and beautiful. And there was the infinity pool, and there was a quad bike track around the property. Wow. There was the fishing hut. Things that I didn't include were that there was a tunnel that went down, it was like private beach access. So it was this kind of really strange sort of smuggler's tunnel that went down to the beach. Hey?
Famous Five.
Yes, just like that, just like Famous Five, Smuggler's Cove. And then they had a speedboat in the marina that our employers didn't really... I don't know if they didn't know how to work it, or they just preferred us to drive it, but they used to ask us to take them out on it. And, part of our job was to go and take the speedboat out.
That's hard.
To kind of keep the engine ticking. I don't know. It was tough. Tough time. It was the most amazing experience and really eye-opening. And so obviously part of the inspiration from the book came directly from that. And then the other part of the inspiration of the book, I don't know if I can talk about. Do you want me to talk about spoilers?
Not about the end. No. We actually just discussed this beforehand, and I think because it is such a spoiler. And not everybody will already have read the book, and we want them to listen or watch this and to go and read it. So no, let's not go there. But
what I will say is that there's another there's another side to the coin almost. And so there's another part of the inspiration that comes from somewhere else. And it was something that I became obsessed with during my sleepless nights. It was something that was ticking over in my brain constantly. I don't know why I fixated on this one thing, this one idea, but the kind of the shaping of the story came from smushing those 2 things together. Okay. So, for example, what if this happened in this setting?
Yes. Yeah. So is that what inspired you to write it as a thriller?
Well, funnily enough, I didn't mean it to be a thriller. Yeah. It was sort of accidental. I never meant to write a...
I love it. I accidentally wrote something scary.
Who knew? Who knew that was what was in my brain? But it was a bit like that. It was a bit like it just came out like that. So I thought I was going to be writing something a lot funnier. So I felt particularly inspired to write when I read things like I would read Leanne Moriarty or like Stephen Fry. You know,
I feel like there is humor in it though. I feel like Emily has like a cool sense of humor.
Good. Thank you. Good.
Like David Nichols. I mean, I think that I read somewhere. I mean, don't you love? Yeah. I mean, Jojo Moyes, David Nichols. You know, that just the complexity of the characters and the airing of their problems, but with humor.
Yeah.
Because there's such gorgeous humor in them.
I mean, I adore David Nichols and Jojo Moyes, and I'm really glad that you think that there's that sort of tenderness and humour in it.
There is.
I thought, like I said, I thought I was writing something much funnier because the point at which I started was very much like, well, what kind of weird and quirky experiences have I had as an actor that I could kind of begin with? And so I began by writing out these scenes that describe what it's like to be in a really strange casting. And I've had loads of different weird audition experiences. So I started out with that. But then I think that situations on the whole only become funny afterwards. When you're in them, they're kind of not necessarily as funny as they might become. Yes. And certainly that situation for me, when I was in it, was actually quite painful and awful. Yeah. And so when I was writing them, and, I have to, as an actor, I'm just used to doing it anyway. But if I were to sit myself and position myself emotionally in that phase of my life or in that fictional circumstance, the humor just kind of, it wasn't appropriate anymore. So there were these scenes that we cut out when I had a publisher and an agent and we were editing. The humor was just cut away and cut away and cut away because it just didn't fit anymore. Yeah. Like I said, because I think that humor's only if you're writing something and you want some emotional immediacy and emotional authenticity, you kind of have to be in it at the same level that the characters are. And then it's not so funny, particularly if really what you're writing about is kind of somebody feeling trapped or lonely or scared.
I feel like
having mental illness.
I feel like a good example of a situation that's really not funny and would be really, really intimidating. And when I read it, I didn't find it funny, but then afterwards I kind of was like, that's really funny. Was when Emily first rocks up at the house and she she's just like, hello. And all of a sudden they pop up and I'm like, that would be so intimidating and that's such a power playing move. But it's and then afterwards I was like, but that's so weird and it's so funny.
And you can imagine how she would tell that story afterwards.
Totally.
I rocked up at this mansion and no one was there and then all of a sudden I was like, ooh.
And then I dropped this dish and there was crap around. Oh my God, it was motivating. You know how she would tell it.
Yeah, exactly.
In the moment.
It wasn't funny.
Well, no, because you know, there's a great Atwood quote that a story is not a story until you tell it to somebody.
Yes.
And so when you're living it, it's like being in a kind of a storm at sea and everything's confusing and weird and you don't have the hindsight to know what the tone is.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It could go any which way.
Totally. Yeah. It's the recounting that makes it funny.
I think that it became a thriller naturally for two reasons. One was because the story from the get-go really is fundamentally about the discovery of a secret.
Yes.
So if you're following somebody that's walking into a new situation and it's, they don't know what's going on, that naturally already, gives you the engine of a thriller.
Yeah, because you have that momentum because you know that you're actually going towards the reveal. All of these, you've got all of these clues and hints along all that layering that you do, and you know that ultimately there's going to be some kind of reveal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it naturally came about like that. And I think the other reason is that, it just came out the way it came out. I didn't know quite what I was going to write. I've always been drawn to darker stuff and darker themes. It really fascinates me. Human psychology fascinates me. But the books and the TV shows and the movies that really set me alight and get my pulse racing are the ones that have, something really dark or something undiscovered, or like a shark underneath the water, something simmering away under there. Yeah. And so I think naturally every chapter ended with something a little bit eerie or mysterious. And so I think it was, sort of 25,000 words in, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm writing. Yeah. I'm writing.
Too, like naturally when something looks super perfect from the outside, I don't know if this is just like my skeptical brain or if this is everybody's. So if you all don't think the same way as I do, then don't judge me. But when something's too perfect, I'm always like, is it though?
But is it really?
Is it though? So I felt like the closer that like Emily got with the family and it was all kind of like hunky-dory, I was like, is it though? Is it really? And then they go upstairs and the bedroom's all dusty. I'm like, it's like not good.
This is actually a really good segue because we've talked about Emily, and we've talked a little bit about Scott, but Nina, she is.
I loved Nina. She was so
complex.
I loved her. I was like,
and I have to say, Anna, I think that Nina really elevates the novel from, because kind of in a way, if you like Emily, I mean, you said yourself, Emily thinks she's in a rom-com, and she kind of does. She's sort of bumbling along and she thinks she's going there to live this dream, and Scott is complex and we know he self-harms and he's trying to keep control, but Nina
I feel like everybody's met a Nina too. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, even talking about with like some mums and stuff, I'm going to sound super judgmental, but even like amongst my friends, I feel like some, like not my close friends, but other mums, now I've got to be careful what I say. But like there's that level of like not wanting to give up any like secrets, and she's like hide stuff from themselves and not letting anyone in, but you can tell like they're super in love with their kid, but there's like this like complex boundary that lures you in. That's what I mean when I feel like everyone's met a Nina. You've met, not necessarily in a maternal way, but maybe amongst friends or friends of friends, or like
what you mean, someone who sort of holds on so tight.
Yeah, like you want to crack them. You can you can tell that there's good in them, but you can like also see that they're just like there's something
not quite right.
It gets me really like, I need to crack who this person is.
So sorry.
No, thank you. It's wonderful. Wonderful to hear you talking about her like that. That's so nice. I love her so much. Yeah. And she's very, very real and, fully realized in my head. And writing her, I think she changed a lot because when I first submitted the manuscript to agents and publishers, her story appeared, 2/3 of the way in one big lump. And it was like there was the big reveal and then you got all of Nina's story. Yeah. And my thoughts were, it's like a story within a story. Yeah. But unfortunately, that didn't really help the narrative drive. And then at that point, the book kind of fell a bit flat because the tension was dissipated. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it was felt by everybody across the board that the best way to remedy that would be to break it up and then seed it through the book. But what that meant then is that it kind of took on a slightly different, more fragmented sort of because I'd broken it up, it was literally fragmented, but also it was then, I could only really get to her in snatches. Do you know what I mean? I could only really see her. But that works
so perfectly though. Because, because that is all you ever get. All she gives of herself, let alone through the narrative, is all she gives of herself are these.
And Nina, and with Nina, it's the stuff that she doesn't say, it's like.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I think that's because there's so much about her own own self that she doesn't understand. And the fact that it's written in first person present tense as well, I wanted it to be like, these are the points at which you're dropped into her mind. This is what it's like being in her head at this moment. And then you're lifted back out, and you're back in with Emily and Scott.
And as the reader, kind of like you alternate between wanting to just kind of like envelop her in a huge hug or slap her. Kind of like
I've never like love and hated someone so much in a book. I was like, you tit, like you're so mean to Emily. And then on the other hand, I was like, oh my gosh,
you poor tormented person.
Like,
you're so unhappy.
Much love, and she's so isolated, and like.
And then when you think about where she's come from and what's happened, even though, like you said, I mean, I only really you only really get kind of jigsaw pieces, little kind of isolated fragments of what she's going through. But I feel like it's sufficiently explained that, she's very, very broken. She's a good person that has been just railroaded by life. She's been given a really bad hand, and everything that happens is her way of trying to save herself and trying to claw her way back to something that she feels is valuable, and to create the things that she always wanted and that she feels she lost. It's hard to talk about her without spoilers, I think, but I really enjoyed writing her pieces. Really enjoyed it. I particularly enjoyed some of the later parts of her story. The very, very intense bits. The action, the intense action bits of what she goes through. I just loved it. And she feels very real.
Are you writing anything now, or are you still at busy.com?
No, I am. I'm currently working on the second draft of a new novel. It's completely different, totally different characters. I say second draft, it feels like the first draft because the first draft was not right, and I felt it wasn't right the whole time. So I'm now kind of in the process of dismantling it and rebuilding it. And I've now got this outline that I'm really excited about and that really works. But it's been a tough process, I think, largely because, starting to when you have a 2-book contract, on the one hand, that's brilliant and very, very exciting, and I'm very lucky to have had that. But on the other hand, it's a lot of pressure for somebody that's never worked to a deadline before. And I think for most people, first books are born from such a genuine place of just pure inspiration, and it's something that just you have to drag out of you because you can't, you don't know what else to do with it, and in fact you're not dragging out of you, it bursts forth. But with the second book, particularly if it's written under pressure of time, and also written from a place where the stakes are so high, if you've been lucky enough to have a successful first book, wow, it's a long way to fall. So I think there's a few things that are, that's where second book syndrome comes from. But throw in a global pandemic and throw in lots and lots of digital promotional events as well, and homeschooling, right? It's been really hard, and I think that what I came out with, what I eventually handed in, was so confused and so sort of fragmented. But thankfully, I've been able to figure out what it is that I've been trying to do, and I'm now working towards that. So hopefully it should be out, I think, in Australia maybe by the end of next year, maybe early.
Are you allowed to tell us? So
you're allowed to tell us a little bit about it,
or like at least what genre?
Yeah, so it's about it's a book that follows a mother and a son, and the son has become involved with the dark web. So it's largely a story about parental fear in a digital age, and how we are raising children in a world where the internet is indispensable, but perhaps we did not grow up with it ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're kind of trying to guide and advise our children in this brave new world. And our children, of course, are, because, you know, they speak a different language to us, really, with regards to technology. But it's, you know, I think my generation, we embrace technology to the hilt, but we are also very afraid of it. And there's a lot that we don't know about it. There's a lot of mythology around the internet that kind of gets under our skin and gives us nightmares. So I'm kind of trying to tap into those sorts of things. Amazing. So basically, this mother tries to kind of curb her son's enthusiasm for the dark web by moving him and them to a remote and idyllic location. Yeah. But the son has unleashed something that follows them there. Let's just say that.
Sounds amazing.
Have you watched The Social Dilemma yet on Netflix?
Not yet, but I've been told twice this week by two separate people that I have to watch it.
I feel like that'll help your study a lot, because it's like really good interviews with really good people. And well, I don't know what's going to help you, but I reckon it's really good because it ties that up and it talks about like that my generation, like people my age, were the last generation to go through high school without social media. So I had the start of like, what did I have? I had MySpace.
You had MySpace.
And MSN. And that was like I'm the last person. And it talks about basically like shaping identity that because of social media, the forming of identity is being influenced by social media and the internet, whereas I'm the last generation that didn't get influenced as my identity as a growing human from social media. So it's really, really cool. And they talk a lot about kids, because all of them have kids, and they talk about whether like most of them don't let their sons and daughters have phones until they're 16. And
yes, I know. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to watch it. It sounds like it's going to be perfect. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to go. It's such a massive subject now, isn't it? I'm not going to be able to really go too deeply into the social media stuff, but it is all of that, you know, and I'm deeply, deeply fascinated by the fact that the creators and the founders of social media tend not to let their children use it, run riot with it. Now, Debbie, are you going to be okay if I watch The Social Thing before Killing Eve, or is that really going to upset you?
No, it's all right. It's fine. No, it's not. Nothing upsets me.
All right, well, I might watch that first and then watch Killing Eve.
Yeah, because I feel that once you start Killing Eve, then you know you that's going to be you for a while.
Yeah, that's going to be you for a while.
So you know,
you're not going to get off the couch.
You better But wash those camping clothes and restock.
So much laundry in my house right now. It's horrible.
Amazing. Well, that's all we've got for you, Anna.
So thank you so much for talking to us.
Oh, thank you. What a pleasure. What a lovely thing to do with my Wednesday afternoon.
Oh, it's our pleasure. That's a really nice thing to say. Thanks.
And we'd love to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah.
Definitely. Let's do it again for sure. Hopefully with the next book. Maybe we'll pour ourselves a wine next time. Really settle in.
I know, totally.
We haven't had wine on the couch yet. We've only had tea. I feel like
actually, I was going to say I've got my little afternoon tea as well, but I think
thank you for a nice afternoon.
Cheers. My bridesmaid's mug.
Fantastic.
Take care. See you later. Take care. Thanks a lot for having me.
So, what did you reckon of that chat?
We could just have talked all day and all night. That was, thank you, Anna. We just loved talking to you.
Yeah, I felt like we were just gossiping with friends.
Totally. So come and visit us anytime. Yes. We'll have that glass of wine and we'll come up with a few more ideas.
Just to have you on Both Sides Book Club.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
So it's that time of the episode, everybody, where we are discussing our next book. So what is it, Mum?
Okay, so our next book is I Give My Marriage a Year by Holly Wainwright. So this, Holly is an Australian author based in Sydney. She is the content director for Mamma Mia, and this is her third novel. And it's a goodie.
Yes.
It's a goodie. So
It's got a fabulous cover.
I know, hasn't it? Absolutely. So the basic story is that there are a couple, Lou and Josh, who've been together for 14 years. They've got 2 children and they're both working full time. But things just kind of aren't really going that well. The gloss has gone from their marriage. They've been having some difficulties. And Lou in particular really has got to the stage where she's trying to weigh up, well, is this what I want? Is this marriage worth it? So she makes a decision at New Year that she is going to give her marriage another 12 months, and she's going to try the best she can, and each month she's going to try something else to try and pull the marriage back together. Otherwise, she's going to call it quits. Woo, heavy. And I just feel that it's a book that will speak to anybody who's ever been in a serious relationship, because I think there are so many issues in it, and it's also funny, and it's sad, and I think you're just going to love it.
Awesome, everybody. So we can't wait for you to read I Give Our Marriage a Year, and we're looking forward to speaking to you then. All right, happy reading.
We hope you enjoyed watching this episode.
If you did, please leave us a comment below. We'll see you soon.